Thank you very much, Congressman Burchett. We now proceed to Congressman Rich McCormick of Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the witnesses for your testimony today. U.S. foreign aid money should serve American national interests and should not reward behavior that hurts ourselves or any other country. I think we all agree on that. The Taylor Force Act, signed into law by President Trump in 2018, prohibits U.S. aid money to Palestinian Authority until they stop paying for these stipends for the Martyrs Funds. In 2019, the U.S. made no contributions to the Palestinian Authority because of this, but President Biden blindly resumed these payments with very little evidence of added oversight. I hope anyone who, by the way, cares about Israel or cares about terrorism is paying attention to who they support. This past May, terrorists in Gaza launched rockets at Israel. And since the beginning of the year, Palestinian terrorists have murdered 27 Israeli civilians and 3 soldiers. Our aid cannot continue to reward and encourage this kind of behavior directly or indirectly by honoring those who participate in these activities. Honorable Mr. Abrams, do the Economic Support Fund dollars allocated to the West Bank and Gaza Strip by Biden administration, does it illegally benefit the Palestinian Authority?
Not to my knowledge. I think the ESF funds are being withheld in accordance with the Taylor Force Act.
Does sending aid money to Palestinian Authority serve to direct, does it serve a direct U.S. interest?
I think it's a direct U.S. interest right now that the PA not collapse overnight, because I think that would create chaos.
Have prior reductions in U.S. aid to Palestinian Authority, such as when we denied them their funds, such as Trump did in 2018, did that result in a collapse of the Palestinian Authority?
No, it clearly did not.
Okay, so is it because something's changed since then?
Well, I think it's partly because they keep running up debts. It's partly because they are getting money from other sources. And one of those sources, you know, is the government of Israel, which withholds customs taxes and then pays some of them basically to keep the PA afloat.
Kind of doing a history research on this and looking at the rise and fall of the PLO, the PA, Yasser Arafat. You probably know better than I, but you guys realize Yasser Arafat kind of what brought in this nationalist movement, the anti-Zionist movement, during a time, as far as my research shows, where we had fairly peaceful people that were your typical electricians, your plumbers, your middle-class workers in the Palestinian region. It had free travel all over Israel. And then this nationalist movement. Does anybody want to tell me where Yasser Arafat was born and grew up?
He was born in Egypt, to the best of my knowledge.
Exactly, Egypt. Then he came over to Palestine, raised this nationalist movement, which now we're kind of basically supporting the same nationalist movement, I would make the case, with our tax dollars, which all support martyrs, with our tax dollars for this movement that wasn't even born and started inside of Palestine, but came from a foreign nation with a people that were anti-Zionistic by definition, and now we're paying to support an organization that you said, by the way, didn't suffer when we didn't pay for it. And so I just make the case that we have to be very careful when we decide where our money goes and what we reward, what behaviors we reward. I think we all agreed that this money has been mismanaged, and that if we continue to use money to reward people who do things that are unacceptable to our nation and to foreign nations that we support, we're the ones that hold accountability.
Yeah, Congressman, it's interesting. People are talking a lot now about the 50th anniversary of the 1973 war. It's also the 30th anniversary of the Oslo Accords. And what you're saying really raises that very interesting question of whether, historically, whether bringing Arafat and his 30,000 troops back, because he was in exile, was a great historic error on the part of Israel.
I would make the case that it is, and they probably made other errors, but I can only be, just like I tell my sons all the time, I'm only accountable for my own actions. And whether Israel makes mistakes or not is on them, but whether we make mistakes with our money and who we support, that's on us. And that's why I call for higher accountability and not to spend money on people who support terrorist organizations. With that, I yield.